I've been looking through the book of Acts, the Acts of the Apostles, and I've been looking at Acts 14 just recently. I'm going to read a little bit towards the end of Acts 14, verse 21. They preached the good news in that city and won a large number of disciples. Then they returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch, strengthening the disciples and encouraging them to remain true to the faith. We must go through many hardships to enter the kingdom of God, they said. Paul and Barnabas appointed elders for them in each church, and with prayer and fasting committed them to the Lord, in whom they had put their trust. After going through Pisidia, they came into Pamphylia, and when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia. From Attalia they sailed back to Antioch, where they had been committed to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. So the interesting thing about this journey is these verses point out to us how when you start something, you want to make sure it also gets finished, especially when it comes to looking after the well-being, the spiritual well-being of people, making sure they get established. And it doesn't mean necessarily the same people are starting and the same people are finishing, but sometimes we recognise from the New Testament that Paul sent members of his team to finish off what was started. And a key thing that seems to be an important theme for him is setting elders in place. In other words, local church leadership, people who can be trusted, people on the ground, people who are probably quite settled there in that town or city. And so when his team travels on to the next place, he's put in place the right sort of things, and particularly the right sort of people. And so he wants to see people not only transformed and touched by the power of the gospel and have some kind of experience and dynamic and encounter and all those things, but he also wants to see something established in that place. He wants to see something established in their lives. And he wants to see a Christian community established wherever he goes. And what's clear too from the New Testament, from Acts and Paul's letters, is that this could be quite a varied experience. Sometimes he was somewhere for a relatively shorter time, sometimes for much longer. Sometimes those issues came up as things like legalism in Galatians. Sometimes the liberal chaotic values of Corinth, another troublesome situation that had to be dealt with and sorted through. And sometimes people were just wonderful. They were great. They were people to be really commended and honoured. And he wanted to make that point as well. The believers in Macedonia, even when they were poor, were very generous. So the experiences that happen in different places are going to be quite different. The people that the gospel touches are going to be very different sorts of people. And finding people with integrity, but finding people who you can establish something with, people that you can root something down into the soil with, that matters. It's something that we have to be aware of. So those who've got a great passion and excitement for evangelism and for God encountering people also need to be thinking about discipleship. Discipleship is such an important value in the thinking and ministry of Jesus, and clearly in the thinking and ministry of Paul as well. And I think very often it's something that really gets underrated and often overlooked and perhaps not as valued in the church. And sometimes we're wondering, how do we do this? How does it become effective? It might be more of a day-to-day ongoing situation. It might be slowly but surely. It might be step by step. There might be an approach that's needed that just takes time. But I like the fact that it's very clear from the book of Acts how Paul decides that discipleship, long-term leadership, long-term local established church community is the way to go. And he's very clear on those kind of things, and really it comes out very much in in the narrative, in the story of Acts. And I think we just need to recognise that that's something we're always wrestling with, but it's something that we need to get hold of as well. So I pray today that God would lead us, that we would understand the value of discipleship, of growing, maturing in faith, that we would, when we see amazing stuff happen, that we would also encourage proper established leadership, healthy local leadership, whatever the situation is that we're in, and that we would encourage others and strengthen others so that they can be strongly established and rooted in their faith. I pray that for every venture, every work that we get involved in, every situation where we happen to be sharing good news to people, that we'll find ways that we can help also encourage them into becoming established, rooted Christians, not just a fly-by-night experience, but something that is lasting and permanent and deeper than just a short experience that they might have on the street or wherever else it might be. So I pray that would be the case for us, that we would make disciples as Jesus taught us to.